I'm Jonathan Zamora, and this is the very first episode of Impact Ecom. This show is going to be all about interviewing different entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners that create movements and build brands. Basically, we're going to be talking to anybody that creates cool shit online. I'm super excited to get this entire podcast started, and so we're going to start this off by talking about my story, how I got started in entrepreneurship, and basically the business that I'm building, Settler Systems. We're going to be talking about how I'm building that currently, where it's at, and some of the lessons and failures that I've had along the way. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and roll the music and jump straight into it. How are everyday people like us building profitable brands and getting products that they believe in into the hands of their customers? This podcast is about entrepreneurs and the lessons behind the brands they've built. I'm Jonathan Zamora, and this is Impact Ecom. So I've been having this building tension over the last couple of weeks as we've started to get the podcast artwork and the introduction rolled out and everything like that. So it's definitely a crazy feeling to see this entire vision kind of come together. And I'm super excited to actually get this thing started because I've been thinking about recording this first episode for about 2 weeks now, and starting to see everything kind of come together was just getting me so excited to kind of just hop in here and get this entire thing rolling. And so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jonathan Zamora. I am the owner and founder of a company called Settler Systems. Essentially what we do is we help direct-to-consumer brands with their email marketing. So pretty much anybody that sells stuff online, we help them with their email marketing, whether it's wine or clothing or shoes or really anything in between. And so because of that, I actually have some really awesome connections that I'm going to be able to bring onto the podcast, people who are 23, 24 years old that are building massive businesses, creating movements, and honestly are kind of underground, people that you have never really heard of before, and for no good reason. I want to bring them to light and show you guys the awesome people that are actually out there for you. But without any further ado, let's kind of talk about my story. I am 23 years old, and I have been running Settler Systems for about 18 months now. Now, before that, let's go ahead and go back to the beginning. In high school, I would say I was the exact opposite of extraordinary. I didn't really have any great qualities. I just worked really hard and tried my best. And sometimes that's all it takes. But for me, I didn't really have any really high ambitions. I knew that I wanted to be rich, but outside of that, I honestly didn't really have too much of a vision for what I wanted to do. And I always had entrepreneurial tendencies. I always would be the kid that was selling something at school, whether it was candy or colored socks or just, weird stuff, just trying to make a buck, or mowing lawns, or, the entire entrepreneur hustle that pretty much everybody has in those early stages. So that was me whenever I was in high school. And I think to kind of drive home the point that I wasn't really exceptional, I remember I was in a chemistry class. It was my senior year, so we were getting ready to wrap up with our high school experience, get ready to go into college. I had already kind of committed to a college, even though I didn't want to go. I totally despised the idea of college, for myself at least. And so I remember I was in my chemistry class with my teacher. I won't mention his name. He's since then actually passed away, unfortunately. But he was an awesome teacher, and he really cared about me. And I remember in one of his classes, I was messing around. This was pretty consistent for me, to be honest. I was messing around, hanging out with my friends in the back. He was talking. I was being, kind of disrespectful. And I remember at the very end of the class, he said, "All right, guys, everybody have a good day, except for Jonathan. I want you to hang around." And at this point, my heart was beating out of my chest because I was never that kid that was really getting in trouble or anything. And so I was like, shit, I messed up. I did something. And so everybody starts to kind of flood out of the class, and he's just sitting there looking at me. And as soon as the last person leaves the room and the door shuts, he walks over to me and sits on the table and says, "Listen, Jonathan, you are a very smart kid. You have a lot of qualities that a lot of people would wish that they would have. But you are not going to do anything in your life if you continue to behave like this. You are not paying attention, you are not focusing, and you're not really doing anything in school." And he's like, you're going to need school. You need this in order to be successful. He's like, "What are you thinking?" And I stopped for a second. I remember looking at him, kind of looking up and saying, "I don't think you understand. I'm going to be rich." Right? That was my mindset. And he looks at me and he says, "Oh, Jonathan, I don't think that you understand. That is the exception and not the rule. Some people will be, but I don't think you will. He was saying this in a way that I don't think was meant to be hurtful or was meant to be something that was necessarily bad. But I think he was saying this because he wanted me to have a good shot at success. And at that point in time, I really hadn't proven myself to be at all exceptional in really any field. I had decent grades, I had things like that, but I never really was the person that really brought it home and really made it happen. And in that moment, I actually had a light bulb that went off. Because if you want to be the exception, you actually have to be exceptional, meaning you have to have exceptional work ethic. You have to have exceptional drive, exceptional vision, exceptional discipline, and the ability to show up time and time again when nobody else really is going to or wants to. And so for me, that was kind of a big turning point because at that point, I really didn't have any reason to believe in myself. And having somebody that I looked up to and that I really thought of highly as a person say that he didn't think I could actually accomplish something was kind of the first little fire that was lit under my ass. And so with that, I went into college and I had the normal college experience. I was there for 2 full years. And after those 2 years, I kind of realized, wow, like I actually hate this. And so from that point, I started to build up an e-commerce business, and it's the typical sort of drop shipping story that a lot of people have. I would say mine happened a little bit faster than a lot of people. The first month, I was working 60 hours a week at a call center, $12 an hour, trying to take any money that I could and just dump that into my business, which was my drop shipping store. And so for the first month, I spent about $2,000 to $3,000 and lost a ton of money. Within 3 months, I had broken even, meaning that for month one, I got one sale that first month. Within 3 months, I had finally broken even, meaning that I was getting that money back and I was no longer in the red. And then 6 months in, I hit 6 figures. So that's a pretty rapid succession. Within 6 months of me starting my e-commerce business, I hit 6 figures. Now, keep in mind, this is $10,000 to maybe $15,000 in profit. But for me, that was a massive turning point. That was like a light bulb went off because I realized, wow, the power of the internet, the power of e-commerce is immeasurable. We have no idea how deep this game actually goes. And so at that moment in time, I decided that I was going to not only quit my job, I was also going to drop out and drop a full ride scholarship. And even thinking about it now, I have no idea what I was thinking because I didn't really make a ton of money at that point, but it felt like I did. And I saw the possibility. So I doubled down and I said, screw it, like I'm gonna make this happen. So I go through, build up a couple of e-commerce businesses. I have a couple of partners along the way and I exit a few of them, making a little bit of money. And this was the point when I had made my first $100,000. And so I thought I was big ballin'. I was about 21 years old, had about $100,000 in the bank account. And I was like, I'm cooking, man. I made it. I finally did it. And so I decided that I was going to go through and open an agency. I had kind of exited all of my e-commerce stores and I didn't have a ton on my plate. So I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and build an agency. Now, this agency was going to offer everything. It was going to be websites, copywriting, video editing, graphic design, everything under the sun. And it was the most unscalable model that you could probably think of. But I scaled it. I went from 0 to 18 employees in 4 months. We went from 0 clients to over 100 clients in 4 months. And I was making more money than I ever had previously. And it blew up. To be honest, it just blew up. We hit a breaking point, a pivotal point where looking back, I kind of realized why it happened. It is because we were a master or jack of all trades, master of none. And so looking back, I realized that we were spreading ourselves too thin. We weren't delivering the best results that we possibly could have, where if we specialized, of course you could deliver the best results because you're only meant to be good at one thing. And so I was making more money, but I was having, I would say about 30% of our clients were unhappy, which for an agency isn't necessarily awful, but for me, I knew that I could do way better than that. And then besides that, our overhead for how much we were paying for the people that were inside of the agency was massive. We were only netting about 30%, but the other 70% was literally just employee cost, which if you know the agency model, that's not normal. That is not what you're supposed to have. And so we hit this pivotal point where we could continue to try to push through and make this model work, even though it's proven that it will not. or I could go through and take a step back. And that's when I started Settler Systems. At this point, I was frustrated. I was upset. I knew that I wanted more, but I didn't really know what to do. And so I've always heard the saying, and I think it's the absolute truth. The way out is always through. And so what I decided to do was to take a step back and remove myself from my business and say, what are we doing that is exceptional? And what are we doing that is not exceptional? And put them in two separate buckets. When I looked at it, we had about two things, Facebook ads and email marketing, that we were doing exceptional. I would say better than 90 to 95% of people out there. And then we also had another bucket of about 10 things that we were doing about as good, about average, about as good as the average Joe would do. And so what I decided to do was take a step back, stop selling the current offer that I had, exit out of all of those 10 things that we had set aside, and only focus on one of those things that we were exceptional at, which was email marketing. And by doing that, we lost a lot of our clients that we had previously because we weren't offering those services anymore. We lost a lot of the revenue that was there, and in turn, I had to go through and fire about 12 of those 18 people. Now, that was one of the most difficult things that I think I've ever been through as a young entrepreneur and as I'm kind of working through and building my company, but it was something that was necessary. It was necessary for me to take it to the next level, to start thinking about the offer and the model more thoroughly if I wanted to actually hit scale. And so at that point, we started Settler Systems. And to me, the big thought process that I had behind starting Settler Systems is there's really two different types of risks. There is market risk and there is execution risk, right? Market risk is when you're putting something new into the market and you're trying to figure out whether people actually care. I'm going to say that again because it's pretty profound. Market risk is putting something new into the market and trying to see if people actually care. Now, execution risk is something that you know people already care about, and you're just trying to put it into the market and do it the best possible. So you're essentially creating a better mousetrap. So if I look at a restaurant locally, I could go through and try to create this new cuisine altogether that people have never heard of and try to see whether or not people would like it. That is a market risk. If I'm mixing a bunch of stuff that nobody's ever done before, it's a market risk. Some people might find it to be cool. Some people might think it sucks. You don't know until you put it out there. That is what the agency that I had previously was, a market risk. I was trying to do something completely different, reinvent the wheel, and that is a market risk. Now, whenever you take something that you already know that people like, you just have to do it better than everybody else. That is an execution risk. So if I look at a restaurant model, it would be like selling Italian food. People love Italian food, at least where I am. And so there's no question on whether or not people are going to eat Italian food. It's just whether or not they're going to buy it from you. And so for me, with the email marketing agency, I know that people are going to buy email marketing. It's just whether or not we are good enough for them to buy it from us. And so for me, that was the pivotal point. That was the thing that I really learned from pivoting from my previous agency with 18 employees, over 100 clients, blowing that entire agency up, and then starting Settler Systems, an email marketing agency for direct-to-consumer brands. And I will tell you, thinking about it in this way, where I am going for a higher margin, I'm going for less skill sets that are needed to deliver the service, but I am very specialized with myself and my team of employees, which we are currently at 7 or 8, I believe. So still a small team. We are netting just as much as we were previously, and we only have about half the revenue, which is crazy to me. And it's literally because we took on a model that was an execution risk, and then we thought about the offer more thoroughly before actually diving in. So for me, this journey has been insane. It's been 3 years of entrepreneurship, grinding, so many failures, so many lessons, so many things that I wish I knew previously. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to try to drop those gems and articulate them to you guys as best as possible. So for me, the 3 biggest things that I think I've learned thus far is, number 1, if you want to be exceptional, you have to actually act exceptional. Number 2, is the way out is always through. I think persistence pays. And if you go through and look at whatever issues you are dealing with currently, a lot of the times you could solve them if you just continue to push and put pressure on whatever that problem actually is. And then number 3 is whenever you are choosing an offer, whenever you are choosing a model, there's 2 different types. It is market risk or execution risk. And if you're a new entrepreneur, I think that you should always be going for execution risk. That's going to be it for this episode. I just wanted to touch very briefly, give you guys context on who I am as a person, where I'm at with my business, and where I plan on going. At this point, I want to scale Settler Systems to $500,000 a month. We are a long ways from there currently, and so I'm going to put my head down and I'll let you guys know when I get there. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you did enjoy it. Make sure you smash the thumbs up button if you're on YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast and drop a review. It would mean the world to us. We're going to be having a ton of awesome interviews coming up in the future, so I look forward to releasing those to you guys. That's it, and I'll talk with you guys soon. Peace. If you like this show, don't forget to leave us a review and share it with a friend. That means the world to us. And if you want a free training on how we are growing our brand partners by 30% in 30 days, go to impactecom.com. That is impactecom.com for the free training. Again, that is impactecom.com. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.